Today, we'll be looking at the Geely Emgrand. Let's do a review. The Emgrand is Geely's entry into the subcompact sedan segment here in the Philippines. It was launched earlier this year and competes directly with the likes of the Toyota Vios and the Nissan Almera. We have right here with us the Geely Emgrand Premium, the top-of-the-line variant, and it's priced at 999,000 Philippine pesos. Now looking at the exterior, the Emgrand definitely looks European and wears the brand's latest design language. It's very Volvo-like, which is a good thing. In front, we have full LED headlights and a very nice grille with vertical slats. On the side, you'll notice how big the Emgrand actually is. In fact, its size is enough to rival larger compact sedans like the Toyota Corolla Altis and Honda Civic. Anyway, the side profile definitely shows off that European vibe, especially with the window shape. It rides on 17-inch two-tone alloy wheels wrapped in 205/55 tires, which are actually large for its segment, and they complement the car's looks very well. Towards the back, we go back to a sleek-looking design with the Emgrand's LED light bar. By the way, both the front and rear lights do a quick dance when you lock and unlock the car. That is something that's very unique to the Emgrand. Once you open the trunk, which by the way opens almost completely when you press the release buttons, it reveals around 500 liters of space, which is excellent for the segment. Of course, this is thanks in large to the Emgrand's larger exterior dimensions. So now we're inside the Emgrand Premium and you can actually see how premium the premium variant really is. So unang-una, the color scheme, which is very interesting. It's blue and white, and then the materials. So we have soft touch on top of the dashboard with fixed stitching, and then some white faux leather, which is also soft. And then on the door panels, we have soft touch plastics, more leather, and this interesting material which is also found in the seats. It looks like suede, but it's not. But it looks nice. Then anyway, I personally am not a fan of this color scheme. I prefer just black or maybe beige, but this is not for everyone. It is for others. Other people will really like it. I personally would prefer just something more subdued, but this is nice still to see, especially considering the price of this car. And then the design itself is also really nice. I like how the aircon vent seems to be seamless all the way, and then everything is laid out properly. The screen, the controls, yeah. And then for the steering wheel, we have a nice steering wheel right here. It's nice and thick. It has sport grips on both 10 and 2. Then some nice stitching. And it's also telescopic. So that's very important, diba? Then for the horn, it's not your usual budget car horn. So that's really nice. And then moving to the instrument cluster, we have a digital one. I'm not sure about the size, but some people will like it. I personally don't like it as well, but I'd rather have here some traditional analog gauges, but they still look good. Medyo confusing lang tignan yung tachometer on the left side, and I'm not a fan of how the TPMS, the tire pressure monitoring system, is front and center. So I'd rather have the other information like the fuel economy, the trip meter right in the center. Anyway, it still looks good, and it's something that you don't usually find in this segment. Then for the screen, we have an 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system. This one doesn't have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, unfortunately, but at least with other Geelys, this is very easy to use. So it's very responsive. It looks it's easy to read, and then we also have some touch-sensitive controls on the sides. I wish that there was a volume knob here, but at least this works well, and it's better than what we see in the Okavango, na wala talaga siyang volume control in the immediate surrounding of the screen. Also, this is where your reverse camera is, which is of decent quality. It's not the clearest, but at least we have guidance lines, and it still works well even at night time. And then moving down, we have our toggles here for climate control. So we have the temperature, the fan speed, and other controls, and they appear on the screen, which you can also control them through there. I still prefer na we have our own separate display for the climate control, but this is okay because it looks good anyway. And then what I also find a bit weird lang is that the hazard button is right next to the climate control. And then moving down, we have 2 levels of storage. So we have this shelf over here where we can put some cards or maybe your phone, like that. And then we have another one below, which we can also put our phone. Then we have here the key actually, which also has This area also has a USB port and a 12-volt power outlet. And then moving further, we have our shifter, which feels really good. It's not the electronic shifter like what we see in other Geely models, but this is okay. And then we have an electronic parking brake with auto hold, two cup holders, and some storage under the center armrest. Then also, this other cup holder is removable. And then moving to the seats, we have some really nice seats. So they're really comfortable. They really hug you in place. They're really well bolstered. As in, very aggressive yung bolsters niya. Then, as I mentioned earlier, it has this like suede looking material, which is not suede, but it looks like suede and it actually looks good. My only concern here is that the white material, medyo baka maging madumihin siya. But, well, for aesthetic purposes, it looks really good. And then also, something that's not very common in this segment is we have a sunroof. So the only problem is when you want to open it, so of course you have the shade, just pull it back, but you don't have buttons to open it. So usually you'll find in here there are no buttons, just for the light. So what you have to do is look for settings in the screen and then press the comfort section for the settings, and then sunroof control, and then the word enabled. So when you press that, the sunroof will open. Then to close it, you just have to press disabled. I think it's still better to have traditional buttons for the sunroof up here instead of putting it in the infotainment. It makes what's supposedly a one-step process into, well, more than one-step process, which is kind of inconvenient. Maybe if you have passengers, it's okay, but if you're alone, it's always better to have an easy control up here. So now we're in the second row, and for this segment, you don't usually expect to find anything back here, and also considering the price. But in this case, it's actually well equipped. So we have two back pockets behind the front seats, which is unusual because at this price, you usually only have on the passenger side. And then we have two aircon vents and USB port and some storage where we can put maybe our phone. Yan. So it's really good for this price. And then materials are still good. We have for the armrest, leather on the door, but this is hard touch plastic, but that's okay. And then for the seats, they're still the same material, thankfully, so they didn't cheap out on that. But I did notice that we don't have a center armrest, unlike maybe the Honda City, which has one. And then for space, it's really good actually. Headroom is pretty decent. Medyo tight lang because of the space here taken by the sunroof. And then legroom is also pretty good. So we have lots of legroom. Footroom is okay, but you don't expect large space in this segment. And this is actually already really big for its segment. And also, maybe 3 adults will fit here without any issue. And by the way, my height is 5'7" and the front seat is set in my driving position right now. So now we're driving the Geely Emgrand, and I'll be honest that when I found out that I'll be test driving this soon, I didn't set my expectations too high, so I actually lowered them. But this exceeded even my original expectations even before I lowered them, and I can definitely see that one factor is the engine. And under the hood of the Emgrand is a 1.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder gasoline engine. It produces 102 horsepower and 141 newton meters of torque, if I'm not mistaken. And that's paired to a continuously variable transmission. So once you get moving, you can instantly feel that there is no lack of power in this car, that it has more than enough for its size. That's despite other competition having more, let's say the Honda City at 120. And it's actually really, really smooth, and that's what I really like about it. So that power is actually enough for the city. When you get on the highway, doon mo medyo ma-feel na you need a little bit more. So it gets a bit loud at that instant, but that's okay considering the price nga. And then the CVT also works really well. It's really smooth, of course, and then it eliminates any lag that you would expect from, let's say, other Geely models that have the DCT and turbocharged engines. This one, it's really smooth. Plus, the engine actually sounds really good. I did not expect that from this car. So let's try to hear the engine at this turn. So it kind of has that rubber band feeling, but it's not too bad. It's a lot better than I expected. And then when it comes to steering, it's actually pretty good as well. So it's actually light, which is as expected din naman. Usually Chinese cars that I've driven, most of them, if not all, have very light steering. But in this case, it still gives us very decent feedback. So you won't feel like you don't know where you're going or where the car is going. You can really feel that you're connected to the road, and that's really good. And it's also very responsive, so wala tayong mga dead spot unlike the Nissan Almera. And then of course, let's talk about handling naman. So with the good steering, of course, you'd expect that it handles well, and it's actually pretty good for what it is. But what I did notice is that when you're taking corners at higher speeds, it does have the tendency to have more body roll for a sedan, so it feels like an SUV sometimes. And then for the good stuff, we have a really good ride quality, so it's very smooth. It takes bumps really well, which I didn't expect at this segment, although we know naman that that's one reason why you would get a sedan. But still, for its price, it's really good. It's really smooth. It takes all bumps without any problem. And then you have a very quiet ride pa, so road noise, wind noise, and even engine noise, they hardly go into the cabin, which is really good. So since it's very quiet, it actually feels, as the variant calls it, premium. Visibility is also really good, so we have large windows, large windshield, large side mirrors, all good for this size of car. And the reverse camera nga, as I mentioned earlier, it's actually pretty good despite it having lower resolution, but that's okay. Overall, the Geely Emgrand actually really exceeded my expectations. It feels good. It feels a lot more expensive than it actually is. And it's very comfortable pa. So, san ka pa, diba? At this segment, this is one of the better ones for sure. And now for fuel economy, the Geely Emgrand doesn't fail to impress me because in the city, we were able to average around 12 to 13 kilometers per liter in moderate conditions. And then on the highway, it wasn't very hard to reach around 21 kilometers per liter. So, yeah, it's really good. And here's 3 things we want to see the Geely Emgrand improve. First is infotainment. While it is good, it still lacks Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Next is engine performance. While it also is good, it does feel like it could do with a bit more, especially considering its size. Lastly, sunroof control. Like I mentioned earlier, there should be a physical switch for this. Then of course, here's 3 things to love. First is the overall experience. The Emgrand is very comfortable and drives really well. Next is packaging. The interior is very well packaged for the segment. And of course, value for money. At its price, no other model comes close in terms of premium feel and tech. Geely Emgrand really wants to take the challenge of fighting the segment leader, which is the Toyota Vios. Then there's the Honda City, the Nissan Almera, mga mainstream cars that we have in the market. But what it offers over them is a premium feeling that you get from more expensive cars, more space, decent driving performance, and something that makes you stand out. So I think it deserves more attention on the road and attention from car buyers. It's really a good choice, and I think if you decide to buy one, you won't regret it at all.